Welcome. Welcome to week 2 of MPAI 600 here at Georgetown University School of Continuing Studies Applied Intelligence program. We're getting rolling with the course and we're getting rolling with the program, so I hope everyone's kind of falling in. We've had some typical first week hiccup issues, and I apologize for some of those. So I think we've gotten those squared away. I'll also just say, if you can welcome a couple of new coming students who registered late, if they've been assigned to your group, please welcome them into your group so you can start with the current events and the presentations at a later date. So week 2, just to start off with a couple of announcements. Keep up the effort. I think I liked, for the most part, what I saw in the discussion sections. I will tell you otherwise if for any improvements. But please keep up that effort, and the tendency is for effort to decline as the semester goes on, but please don't let that happen. And again, it gets harder from here on in. The readings get a lot more technical. There's presentations and papers and a lot more work, a lot more discussion sections, so just keep that in mind. Specificity in writing. That's the one thing I kind of pointed out. I want you to be as specific as possible when you're talking about the writing. For instance, this past week we talked about the ints and bin Laden, and some of you did this, but show me the int, how it was used, and then how it developed specific intelligence that allowed for the capture of bin Laden. Don't give me, wishy-washy, the ints were good, it showed cooperation, it showed how we all need to work together. No, I want you to get down to the brass tacks specifically, how it worked. When the next week you're going to see a documentary on confessions, and I want you to specifically tell me what analytical biases were exhibited by those detectives that were involved in that. We're going to talk about 9/11 in a future class. Specifically, what failures were. And don't just say we need to work together better, we need to communicate better. Point the finger, who's to fault, and back up your argument. That's what I'm looking for in your writing, and please be as specific as possible. The one thing I'll also say is, and I think everyone hit this, but I want you to emphasize this from here on in, on the discussion sections, I'm looking for that you take the theory that we talk about in class and apply it to the case study. One, I have to make sure that you're actually doing the readings and watching the documentaries. But two, I want you to demonstrate to me that you can put that one and one together, that you can take the theory and apply it to a real world scenario. So make sure that you do that in this upcoming discussion board. Particularly the case study, the confessions, which I'll talk about in a second. So current events, again, I like to start dabbling a little bit in current events in these YouTube videos. You give me your current events, I'll give you what I think is important. So the government shutdown. A lot of you are probably impacted by it, and I don't want to get too political here, but I do want to just make sure that as many of you are going to be national security professionals, homeland security professionals, you can understand what security theater is. And that is just investing in things to give the perception that you're advancing security. That is, some might argue is a function of government, to give the people at least if it's not effective, at least a perception of effectiveness. And that's part of it that's important, that needs to maybe be addressed. But the question is it worth this wall? One, $5 billion isn't going to pay for this wall, and two, the majority of people come from that are smuggling drugs, that could be terrorists, come from known points of entry. A wall's not going to do anything to stop that. People smuggle drugs through airports, through the border crossings. So really think, is this $5 billion going to be worth it? And the $5 billion is going to be a dent in building the wall. The wall will actually take probably 10 times that to build. So just kind of food for thought. Iridium, the second thing, focusing on the business intelligence side of the house. Iridium launched a satellite this past week. And the reason I bring up Iridium makes those phones, satellite phones, and it's a classic case study of a business that went bad, was able to reform and remodel, and actually now captured market share. Iridium first tried to develop satellite phones for consumer markets, far too expensive, couldn't compete with Verizon and Comcast. So they really retooled and niched down to maritime markets, to very, very rural markets, and that made the business profitable. And they used information to drive these business decisions, and that's what part of business intelligence is. So Iridium is kind of a success story going forward that kind of hit the news. Might not have been the front page of the news, but it's definitely worth looking into if you're focusing on the business intelligence track. So review of last week, the UBL capture. I think most people hit all the ints. I think most people now understand what the ints are and how they contributed to the UBL capture. So SIGINT, HUMINT, GeoInt, SIGINT allowed to track the courier, track through his satellite phone. HUMINT, the initial interrogations, which identified the courier. Whether you think there was enhanced interrogation or not, I'll let you decide on that. Or whether you thought it was effective. And then finally, GeoInt allowed people to identify the number of wives that were there, and they cross-cued with how many wives bin Laden had, or how many different families. They identified a pacer moving back and forth, a 6-foot person. They were able to use negative evidence using GeoInt to determine not a lot of people came to that site, which determined that that was definitely a high-value target. So you see, this is the classic example of cross-cueing of intelligence, verifying a target with multiple intelligence disciplines to achieve a desired outcome. Any one of these individual ints by themselves should not have given enough information to target the bin Laden compound. But when you see all three fused together, it gives better outcomes, it limits the potential for deception, and you see it, again, the success story there. So then the intelligence cycle, I call it the amended. I talked about it there. You have the classic intelligence cycle, you have Lowenthal's, you have what I say, which I cover from initial requirements all the way down to decisions made by politicians and military leaders. I look at it, again, holistically, and I also look for intelligence to be successful. You have to be successful at each one of those wickets for it to be successful. And we'll talk about failures in the upcoming weeks. And the question is, where in that line did the failure occur? So, going on to week 2, again, your collection strategy is your assignment that you will be due. So go ahead and pause me and click on the example collection strategy I handed out. Okay, so in that collection strategy, you see what I'm looking for. And again, develop, it's very simple. Develop requirements, very specific ones, apply the intelligence disciplines, and analyze pitfalls in the collection cycle. So 3-4 requirements should be good. And again, it's topics that you want to be focused on. It could be North Korea, Russia, MS-13, criminal activity in Fairfax County, whatever topic you want. I'll let you decide, and that's applicable to whatever your career goals are. And then again, be creative. This isn't a rote, multiple choice or there's only one answer is correct. It's how well you can argue your points and how much initiative you can show. So that's what I'm looking for in this topic. And then the readings, Lowenthal Chapter 6, the Intelligence Tradecraft Primer, and then the documentaries, the PBS Frontline, the Confessions, which should give you a good understanding of intelligence failure at the criminal level or analytical bias that's shown by police and juries and judges and so forth. So with that being said, I look forward to the discussion sections, and if there's any questions or issues, please let me know.